Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Go ahead and call the meeting to order. This is an open meeting of the Seward, Nebraska governing body. The City of Seward abides by the Nebraska Open Meetings Act in conducting business. A copy of the Nebraska Open Meetings Act is displayed on the north wall of this meeting room facility as required. Disclosure of meeting recording processes is posted in the meeting room. Participant sign-in sheet is available for use by any citizen addressing the council. Presenters shall approach the podium, state their name and address for the clerk's record, and are asked to limit remarks to 5 minutes. All remarks shall be directed to the mayor, who shall determine by whom any appropriate response shall be made. The City of Seward reserves the right to adjust the order of items on this agenda if necessary, and may elect to take action on any of the items listed. Please call the roll.
Leeske.
Here.
Back.
Here.
Hanford. Fritz.
Here.
Pike.
Here.
Singleton.
Here.
Schmidt.
Here.
Hance.
Here.
First item, we have introductions. We have here a new hire. We have Brandon Wood as a permits technician. Ed, do you want to?
You bet. Good evening, Council. Ed Gonzalez, Building and Zoning. I'd like to introduce Brandon Wood. He's our new permit technician for the city. He was one of our interns there previously in the years past, one of a couple others. Brandon is a senior at Concordia University, due to graduate in May. He shares his duties between the building department, rec department, and the electric department. And he's been a great help so far with some AutoCAD and GIS work and stuff like that. So, Brandon Wood.
Well, welcome.
Any questions, anybody?
We'll let you off easy.
Just real quick, last year was a great year, building-wise, development-wise, 44 new construction projects, and more subdivisions around the drawing board.
Which is why we need Brandon.
Exactly. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Item number 2, consideration of approval of draft minutes of January 20th, 2015.
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, please register your votes. Please display the votes.
Voting in favor, Leeske. Back. Fritz. Pike. Singleton. Schmidt. Hance. Motion carried.
All right, item number 3, this is the consent agenda consideration items.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? Yes, Charles?
I'll abstain because there's a payment to my employer and then
Okay.
claims.
Any other discussion? Seeing none, please register your votes. Please display the votes.
Voting in favor of the motion, Hance. Schmidt. Singleton. Pike. Fritz. Back. Leeske abstains.
All right, we have a number of appointments. Item number 4, we have for the Seward Foundation, we have reappointment of council members Fritz and Pike. For the Park and Rec, we have reappointment of Denny Erks, Ken Schmeeding, and Justin Hartman. For this Seward Aging Services Commission, we have Millie Guthrie, who is replacing Nita Goings, and Dell Peters, who's replacing Wilma Luth. They actually have term limits on that commission, and that's the reason why they are going off. And the reappointment of Clifford Lowell and also Councilmember Schmidt. Item D is Community Redevelopment Authority for Tax Increment Financing, and that's the reappointment of Mike Hecker. And for item E, we accept the resignation of Gary Fett from the LB 840 Sales Tax Application Review Board. And I believe we should do these probably individually by board. So for each one, I'll need a motion and a second and a vote. So the first one would be the Seward Foundation.
I'd make a motion to approve.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? Please register your votes. Please display the votes.
Voting in favor, Leeske. Back. Fritz. Pike. Singleton. Schmidt. Hance. Motion carried.
Item B,
Move approval.
Second.
we have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, please register your votes. Please display the votes.
Voting in favor, Leeske. Back. Fritz. Pike. Singleton. Schmidt. Hance. Motion carried.
Item C,
So moved.
Second.
a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, please register your votes. Please display the votes.
Voting in favor, Hance. Schmidt.
Item D,
So move. Second.
the motion and second, is there any further discussion? Seeing none, please register your votes. Please display the votes.
All in favor, Ham Schmidt, signify by Fritz, Beck, Leeske, motion carries.
Item E,
So moved.
Second.
the motion and second, is there any further discussion? Seeing none, please register your votes. Please display the votes.
All in favor, Leeske, Beck, Fritz, Beck, motion Ham, motion carries.
Alright. Item 5, consideration of claim of Gary Rolfe of 404 Lincoln Street for personal property damage. Tim is not feeling well and was not here today, neither was John Hughes. And so, if Gary, if you wanted to say anything, you're welcome to. Otherwise, you have information in your packet. I would mention, and discussing this with the city attorney, as far as council discussion, keep in mind, since we don't know how this will play out, we have to be very careful about asking questions or making statements on the record that could potentially be a part of any litigation. So I would encourage you not to do that. So, but Gary, did you want to explain your claim?
There's no litigation, Brett.
Well, that's my standard line.
No, I
so.
understand. I have to correct you. The item on the agenda is incorrect. There is no damage.
Oh, okay.
This is reimbursement for 2 plumbers' bills in my time for the city's error in having incorrect maps displayed on their GIS system for where the sewer connections are for the given houses, specifically mine at 404 Lincoln Street. I don't know if, has anybody seen the actual letter that I accompanied with the claim? You should have gotten a copy of it because it was attached to the claim. It basically says that starting at about 2 o'clock on Sunday the 18th of January, water started bubbling up in my basement. So we turned our water off, and knowing or assuming that I was at the head of the line on, we're right on Lincoln Street, and we assume that our drain goes into the alley on the west side of the house and goes north. So we ran down the street telling everybody to turn the water off because it just kept bubbling in, and it came in intermittently all afternoon into the evening until about 7:30 that night. And all told, I lost count, 25 5-gallon buckets. As it bubbled in, I scooped it out because there's a big enough indent in the concrete floor in the basement to keep me out of trouble. At least there's about a 10-gallon capacity there. And it got pretty close a couple of times, but I was pretty heated because I was missing a couple of football games, but that's the humorous part of it. But we're really lucky that no damage was done because we kept the head of the water, and it just seemed to be intermittent. But we had the city come out. To their credit, they were pretty quick. They came out, they showed me on the maps. This is a private line in the alley. And you all need to have a future discussion about private line, because what I'm hearing anecdotally is there's problems with the people in town being upset about that issue. And why doesn't the city own the lines, and especially in the 4th and Lincoln Street? That's a 100-year-old house. Regardless, that's another issue. I don't want to bring it. I just want to let you know that that's an issue that I'd like to have a discussion with you and the Public Works folks about. If you have some suggestions. Regardless, Roto-Rooter, well, the city said that the line in the alley was private, and they said, we'd love to help you, but we can't. You're gonna have to find a plumber with a long enough snake. And Marlon is a good friend of mine who eventually did come out about 7 o'clock. Ran a 100-foot snake. I had run a 50-foot snake and hit no obstructions, and it just didn't make sense. We're 100 feet out. We should be in the alley in the main line somewhere. And now the city's telling me that it's still my problem. So Roto-Rooter came out Monday afternoon, which was a federal holiday. So luckily, well, I don't know, it's still a work day for most people, but we didn't have a problem with water continuing to come in on Monday. So there was a slow enough drain out the pipe somewhere, wherever it was clogged, to keep me out of trouble. We ran a camera down the line 119 feet where it joined a bigger line, which the guy said, that's your line, let's go find the probe. And on those cameras that you can buy, that he had, you can actually go out and locate it just like it's a metal detector. And we couldn't find it in our alley. And he says, you should be able to tell right away by getting close. It gives you an auditory reading that they're getting close. So So we went to the south side of Lincoln Street, across the alley to the south. And there he found it 2 feet from the curb, about 15 feet south of the manhole, which is in the middle of the street, which by the way was empty, which still has me puzzled. But called the city right away because that is a city line, and they had acknowledged that earlier. They came out, they jetted the line, if you know what that is. They ran all the way from 2 blocks south of Lincoln, past Moffett, whatever the next street is to the south, and pulled the line back with high pressure water and blew the line out. We haven't had any trouble since. But I know one thing, I'm the lowest person on that spot of the line where the clog was, and we went in another 40 feet with that camera and found where the water was starting to build up. So it was in there somewhere next to Brenda's house across the street from me. I forget her last name, but anyway, I'm wasting your time here. I just want to let you know that the city's maps are wrong, and that's why I'm claiming this. And I'm claiming $200 of my labor because I spent all day Sunday and half the night Sunday night on vigil watching that stupid drain, making sure no more water came in. And I'm kind of upset about it because, and I'm not upset personally, I'm just saying the city's maps shouldn't be that wrong. Somebody dug a trench across Lincoln Street at some point and connected to that line on the south side of the street. I don't know when that was, but the city's lost record of that, obviously. And so, the other recommendation I have for you long term is to consider doing a project to go out and map lines and make sure, and buy a camera. And if you don't buy a camera, I'm gonna, because there's a market for it. So, that's all I have. Do you have any questions?
Any questions from the council? Kelly, do you have anything you want to add to this?
No, I mean, in past practice, you guys have denied these claims and sent them to, a lot of these claims you've denied and sent to the insurance carrier for consideration. That's a choice that you guys make, and I'm not sure what, how deductibles play into this for, for this kind of an amount, so, it's council's decision on how they want to handle it.
Okay. Is there any discussion from the council? Or questions, I guess? Or,
I would make a motion to pay the claim.
okay, we have a
Second.
motion. Pay the claim, I'll give a second. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, please register your vote. Please display the votes.
20 in favor, Leeske, Beck, Fritz, Eichner, Schmidt-Hans, motion carried.
Thank you, Gary. Item number 6, consideration of a resolution calling water system revenue refunding bond series 2010 for redemption. Paul,
Good evening,
welcome.
Mayor, members of council. We have for your consideration this evening a resolution that would call the existing 2010 water system revenue bonds for early redemption. And if you choose to do that, there would be an ordinance then to issue refunding bonds in an amount not to exceed $1,620,000. We think if current rates hold, that we could get these bonds done around 2%. You're currently paying 3.77, which would result in a savings of approximately $100,000 to the city's water system.
Any questions?
So what's the 125 makeup?
The difference in
additional,
principal?
yeah, the additional.
It's a parameter, max par amount not to exceed that amount. What I think the real number is gonna be is 1,520,000. Things that would potentially increase that would be if we, as a project team, including the city, or at the city's direction, funded the accrued interest from the last payment on the 2010 bonds to redemption, which right now is estimated to be about $17,000. That's really it. I can't think of too much else that would cause that number to move, but we always build some cushion into the parameters, and then things are approved, we sign the bond purchase agreement and designate the final terms of the bond issue. The other thing that could cause that amount to come down further is there is an existing debt service reserve fund. We're working backwards with bond counsel, going through the transcripts to see to identify if it might be to the city's advantage to release that debt service reserve and issue fewer bonds. And that's something that I have not visited with Jack Urbani about yet, but it's things that we're looking at as we complete our diligence.
Well, I guess, I don't mean to bore the rest of the council, but the bonds is the one area that I'm always questioning on what we're doing. You know, the next item that's in here references these new bonds, and I think you limit the whole piece at 3%, I think is what's in our packet. So I was using the 3% scenario, you know, and our weighted rate on the bonds we have right now is 3.47. You know, if our weighted rate on the new bonds is at 3%, that's a 0.5% that we're looking to save. And we're writing in an additional $125,000. The amount of savings that we get, and I know I'm not taking into account everything because the bonds are hard to understand, but just doing simple math, you know, our savings, our annual savings is only around $3,300. And saving $3,300 and expending another $125,000, that takes like 36, 37 years to recover. And I guess I'm just curious why we're rewriting this. I mean, our weighted rate right now is 3.47, and unless our weighted rate is going to be 2%, I don't see where it makes sense to kick the can down the road and add an additional $125,000 to it. I mean, I know when we look at, and it's one of the things that Ryan pointed out last year when we went through audit stuff, and you know, because he asked me what I knew about it. It's like every year we undo this, put it back in, undo this, and put it back in. You know, I'm just curious: is this the best thing for the city, or what else are we bonding this year? Because if I read this stuff right, and I'm not pretending to understand it all, Paul,
No, that's okay.
is this is callable anytime after March 15th.
That's correct.
Okay, and so what's the procedure on bonds as far as, I mean, there's electric bonds, there's water bonds, there's general bonds. You know, what else are we gonna bond this year? Does it make more sense to wait until we have a bigger portfolio of bonds instead of paying essentially you or whomever twice to keep doing bonds for us if we wrap it up in a bigger package?
It might be helpful to you and the council if I explain my numbers a little bit better, and we might be able to answer some of the questions that.
Well, even some sort of cash flow. I mean, our principal payments right now are 165, 145, 155, 160. Our principal payments are going up, so it's definitely not helping cash flow.
If I may, the weighted average of the outstanding maturities on the 2010 bonds is 3.775768. The proposed, or I should say what we think the market is on these, if we go to market right now, it would be an average coupon of around 2%. So the true interest cost, which in your ordinance that you saw is stated not to exceed 3%, I think that number is probably 2.25 right now. And I also think that the par amount that we would issue in bonds is closer to $1,520,000, not the maximum par amount that's in the ordinance. And if for any reason that number would make you uncomfortable, then I'd respectfully ask you to make a motion to approve the ordinance, and you could state a change that you could override that maximum par amount to be a number that you're comfortable with. I don't think it's going to become a reality. I think the net savings to the city's water system is closer to $100,000 after everything's accounted for, and that type of savings is consistent with the Government Finance Officers Association's good best practices, and that is any time that an issuer can achieve net present value savings that is equal to or above 3% of the amount of bonds being refinanced, it's supported by the GFOA's best practices. I'm looking at a number of about 6% right now. So if we've got we got some time here before we're going to go to market. But if rates stay, I think we're going to do it around twice what the GFOA standard states.
Well, I think, I mean, I don't know if any of us are financial experts sitting there in council, but at least a cash flow or something that gives us a little bit better detail. because I don't know how you calculated your 3.77, because I took what is in our packet, took the principal times the rate, came up with my interest amount, added up all the interest amounts, divided by the principal amount, I get 3.47. So I don't know how I'm calculating weighted rate incorrectly maybe. So, because my weighted rate is 3.47, you mentioned 3.77 or 7 something.
Sure, I'd be happy to walk
So,
through it.
I just think, you know, we throw this stuff out and, you know, we always hear, at least since I've been on the council, what I have heard is, well, we can get a better rate, we can get a better rate. But we're getting a better rate, we're also adding $125,000 to these bonds, and at what point are we gonna pay off bonds instead of keep kicking the can?
We're adding 25,000.
125. You're hoping 25. Yes, no? Because
Well-
149.5 to 162.
Well, it's 1,495,000 is the par amount of the refunded bonds.
Right.
And I'm telling you that I think the amount that we're gonna issue is 1,520,000.
Okay.
And
Well, our
assume-
packet has 162.
And that's, we built in that cushion like we do in so many of our bond issues. If you're not comfortable with that cushion, just because it says we're gonna issue bonds and not to exceed 1,620,000 does not mean we're going to.
Well,
If
that's
you're
why I think
comfortable
you
with the
need
cushion-
to give us a little more information then, because I'm making a decision based off of what I'm reading here, and assuming the worst, this is where we end up. I don't, in nowhere in my packet did it tell me you assume it's only gonna be 1.5.
No, we just typically, we put parameters in there and it's my job to, I guess, present my numbers to you tonight, which is what I'm attempting to do.
Well, if we can get those numbers ahead of time next time, so we have time to look through them.
I'd be happy to do that.
Cash flow would be good.
The cash, and the cash.
And labeling the hard cost of underwriting and legal, so we know what we're actually spending to redo bonds.
Would you like me, could I take you through those specifics now?
You can take them through me, but if I can't sit and look at them and really digest it,
Would it be,
doesn't do a lot for me.
would it be okay if after, perhaps tomorrow I emailed you the numbers and
That'd be
walk
great.
through them over the phone?
That'd be great.
That'd be okay?
I would probably ask you to email them to Bonnie so she can send them out to everyone on the council.
Okay.
Not that you have to have conversations with every individual, I think the council members can decide if they wanna have that conversation, just out of efficiency. That way everyone will have the information, and then if there's interest in having a conversation with you, I would leave it up to you to either do a conference call, but keep in mind, you can't have a quorum.
We can't have a quorum on the conference call.
No,
I don't think anybody else probably has to.
I'm not worried about it, but just, I have to say
And
it.
these are very fair questions, and I promise you, we can both come to an understanding on very quickly. I'm confident in that.
Ellen?
Following up on Chris's question, what else do we have this year coming up? I mean, it makes, what he said makes some sense, is why not do everything together, be more efficient and get the savings done?
That's a very good question.
This is, so.
Okay, right, so if we do, you have several types of bonds outstanding. You have sewer system revenue bonds, you have water system revenue bonds, you have general obligation bonds. It makes sense to package as many projects as you can in certain categories of bonds. So if we knew that we were gonna have some other projects that would be payable by the water system, then it would make sense to wait. Perhaps we would want to wait and see if we could add those projects to the water system revenue bonds. That's frequently done with general obligation bonds, where a city might have 2, 3, 4 projects financed all at once. So yeah, if we thought there was going to be some things down the road, that would be great. Bond counsel, Gilmore and Bell and D.A. Davidson charge the city a percentage. So, generally speaking, the fees are going to be proportionally the same. There would be efficiencies on our end by not having to work to do multiple issues, and there'd be definitely efficiencies on Bonnie's end to save her the paperwork and working with us on more than one issue, if we thought that was a possibility.
And just to clarify, as we go forward, we've had a number of these types of these types of situations where we're refunding bonds. I guess the question is then, why can't those be bundled? the ones that after the fact.
Oh, why couldn't, well, let me understand the question.
Maybe that makes absolutely no sense because I'm not a banker, but
Either one.
but if you if it's like, you know, I think in the last 4 years with the market doing what it's been doing, we've had this come up before we would go back and is a better rate for a bond, and we would then do this exact same thing. And my question is that I assume that this is from a novice standpoint, I assume that those good rates would apply to any of those outstanding bonds. So why couldn't those all be done, I guess, in one bundle or at one time, as opposed to sort of string betting these along, where we do one, then do another, and then do another? Is there a way to sort of look ahead and say, okay, this during this year, this fiscal year, we're gonna have 3 of these, or 4 of these, or I guess why couldn't those be bundled?
No, that's a great question. So when we, at the beginning of the year, we did a little bit of that. When we
Okay.
saw what was gonna need to be done from the electric system, and we looked at what general obligation debt was available to be refinanced at that time. And we did refinance the general obligation debt, and we did fund the electrical system debt. This water system revenue bonds, these couldn't have been done at that time anyway, and they're different credits, so we couldn't couple the water system revenues and the general obligations in the same offering.
Okay.
In 2010, when we did this last issue, we did create some efficiencies. The 2010 bonds refinanced the existing 2003 series, the 2003B series, and the 2004 series. So that was a great time to clean up 3 issues and produce one. From the water system revenue, that the only callable bonds we have to consider right now are the 2010s. If there were others out there, we would absolutely be well advised to package them.
Okay.
I don't know if we've answered the question, what other projects? I know of the electric anticipation notes that we just worked on, that project we're hoping is done this current fiscal year, so that would turn into bond. And there's the Columbia, Isaac Walton, Jackson, it's a street project, so I don't know if any of that is sewer or water. And I don't know how large of a project that is, but I know of those, that'll probably be a bonded project.
And the practice, would the practice on that likely be issued bond anticipation notes to fund that project? And then we'd come back likely in 16 with bonds to go to permanent financing?
And again, I don't know how large that project or the length of time for full construction is on that.
So we've got some time to learn more there.
Do we have any other questions from the council?
I mean, it just comes down to, I've seen enough of this, and I finally started digging into it. I'm trying to figure out, why do we keep doing this? And in my opinion, like I said, it looks like we're kicking the can. And I'm gonna make you reiterate, and I apologize, Paul, because I told you without having stuff in front of me and being able to digest it. You were saying instead of the 1,000,006, it's gonna be what? 1 million?
I think the par amount's $1,520,000, so when Gilmore and Bell asked me to provide parameters that would, that we would work from, I suggested that we put $100,000 of cushion into the bond issue. Some people wouldn't have put that much cushion into the proceedings, others may have put more. That was my suggestion. We were looking at a cost of money at the time of about 2.4%, and we said, well, let's make it easy, and we'll allow the TIC not to exceed 3%. That way we can operate within the documents. If some councils may make a motion and then add to that motion that we state a minimum savings threshold, which could be whatever you like. Lots of councils I've seen say, I approve, make a motion to do the ordinance so long as the minimum net present value calculation exceeds 3%. That would be one that I've seen happen before, but that number could be whatever you like. Everything that we do is always subject to market conditions, so when it's time to go to the market and sell the bonds, we report back what we think the results are going to be, and then we're told either to proceed or not to. And there's a chance that the market could go away on this, and this doesn't make sense to do, and if that happens, then the proceedings have been authorized and they can sit on the shelf, and then we'd report back to you if things change. And that does happen sometimes.
Ellen?
Okay, not to further confuse me, but, probably will. If the worst case scenario happens and you have to go up to the full amount, then what? What is the savings?
Well, I really don't think that's gonna happen. The easiest number to control here, or the easiest thing for us all to look at as we come back to you with results and to judge them would be the savings amount. And I would be very comfortable with you modifying the ordinance, and instead of saying $1,620,000, have it say $1,520,000. It's just not generally how we operate, but I would be comfortable with that because I know what I think the numbers are gonna be.
I don't see any problem with the cushion, I'm trying to figure out what we're, percentage-wise we're at if we go the full amount versus the percentage of savings we're at if we don't. Get a better deal.
Well, the best deal that we would hope to come back to you with is exactly what I'm looking at right here. We'd issue $1,520,000, we'd get the bond sold at 2%, and we'd come back and show you the savings is, $100,000 or so. And I think I've got even a little bit of cushion built into that from a marketing standpoint. Early in the scale, I think I'm pretty close, the first couple maturities. But for example, in my model, for just example purposes and for my own information, I'm using a 2.4 interest rate in 2023. Well, I know that if we sold those bonds today, the market would take them at a 190. So I'm building a little cushion in there. I don't want to come to you and say, boy, I think I can save you $135,000, and then be wrong and have to come back and say the number's lower. So when I tell you tonight, I think we're going to save you $100,000 net of all expenses, I think we can do better than that, and I'm expecting to do so, bearing a little bit of market risk here over the next 30 days. So I know we don't have the audit, and we're not going to have it till probably the end of the month. So from our end, we need to complete our diligence and finish up our offering documents so that when we do have that audit, we can go right to the market and hopefully do better than what I've hinted at tonight.
I think that makes sense from the standpoint of, you'd much rather come back to this council and tell us how much more money you saved us than come back and say, because of something else that's happened, that it didn't go as well as you had anticipated.
That's correct. We've built, like I said, a little bit of a fade in there in case the market moves, and I don't want to be standing in front of you in March explaining to you why I didn't do as well as I told you I was going to do tonight. And if we can curb that a little bit, without sandbagging too much. Of course, we want to be as transparent as we can. And maybe there's some disagreement on the amount of cushion that we built into the documents, and maybe going forward I should have maybe asked that we pull the council a little bit on what their amounts are, or what comfort level is with that. I'm just kind of operating on the standards that we're used to. So.
Yes, Charles.
I'm gonna go ahead and make a motion to approve the ordinance with the caveat that we have a minimum net calculated savings of 3% or greater.
I think we have to introduce the resolution, right?
Yeah.
Sorry to throw you off there.
No, it's okay. So if the discussion has finished, I'm asking if someone would like to introduce the resolution.
That sounds like a good idea.
You'd like to introduce the resolution?
Yeah.
Okay, the resolution has been introduced and is designated as resolution number 2015-03. Would anyone like to move that this resolution be passed and adopted?
So moved.
Second.
This would be setting a 3% threshold?
Is that in the resolution?
This is just for the
This is just
redemption.
calling, right?
This is just
Or
calling.
Well, that would be,
Okay,
I think Charles intends to make a motion in the ordinance that
In the coming up,
we
okay.
not sell the bonds and cause the 2010s to be redeemed unless we're presenting to you final results where the present value of the savings would exceed 3% of the principal not being refinanced.
So we're okay with this resolution, then we'll address Charles's point in the ordinance, okay.
Yeah, this is just the resolution to call them on.
Okay. So we have a motion and a second, is that correct? But please register your votes. Please display the votes.
Voting in favor of the motion, Hans Schmidt, Singleton Pike, Fritz, Beck, Leeske, motion carries.
Alright. So then we move on to item number 7, this is consideration of an ordinance authorizing the issuance of water system revenue refunding bonds, principal amount of $1,620,000 for the purpose of refunding $1,495,000 of outstanding water system revenue refunding bonds. Paul, you're up again. Do you need to add, I guess?
No, sir.
Okay. Obviously, there'll be opportunity for discussion, but unless there is any discussion now, did you want to introduce the ordinance?
Yeah, I'll go ahead and introduce the ordinance and offer the amendment that it would include a minimum net calculated savings of 3% or greater.
There will be an opportunity for more discussion if you would like. So the ordinance has been introduced. So do you read this and then he gives this motion? Procedure. Okay. So an ordinance of the City of Seward, Nebraska authorizing the issuance of water system revenue refunding bonds to the City of Seward, Nebraska in the principal amount of not to exceed $1,620,000 for the purpose of refunding $1,495,000 of outstanding water system revenue refunding bonds, Series 2010, providing for necessary reserve funds and paying costs of issuance of said bonds, prescribing the form, terms, and details of said bonds, pledging and hypothecating the revenue and earnings of the waterworks plant and water system of said city for the payment of said bonds and interest thereon, providing for the collection, segregation, and application of the revenue of said water works plant and water system, entering into a contract on behalf of the city with the holders of said bonds, repealing any conflicting ordinances, and providing for publication of the ordinance in pamphlet form. The ordinance has been read by title and is designated as ordinance number 2015-02, and the title is hereby approved. I need a motion to dispense with statutory rule.
So moved.
Second.
Is there any further discussion?
So how does Charles' piece fit in, so what he just read?
Yeah, does that amendment have to be a separate motion?
No, this is just the motion to dispense with the statutory three-reading rule. That's the
Then we'll-
only pending motion right now.
We'll deal with the substance in the next motion. Okay, is there any further discussion? Seeing none, please register your votes. Please display the votes.
Voting in favor of the motion, Leeske, Beck, Fritz, Pike, Singleton, Schmidt, Hans, motion carries.
So this is the portion, I think, where it states, this is ordinance number 2015-02, and it asks if anyone would like to move that this ordinance be passed and adopted as read. Imagine we would need a motion in a second, but the motion would include your modifying term. So would you like to make your motion with the modifying term?
Yeah, that would be fine. So, my motion includes the modifying term that we have minimum net calculated savings of 3%.
That is the motion. Do you need to add to that? You're okay? Is there a second to this motion?
Second.
So we have a motion and a second. So this is ordinance number 2015-02. Would anyone like to move that this ordinance be passed and adopted as read? We have the motion and the second. Any further discussion? Seeing none. The question is, again, shall ordinance number 2015-02 be finally passed and adopted? Please register your votes. Please display the votes.
Voting in favor, Hans Schmidt, Singleton Pike, Fritz, Beck, Leeske, motion carries. That's the only one.
Is it the only one? Okay. That is the only ordinance for this evening, so I'll need one final motion to make the ordinance part of the permanent record.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Please register your votes. Please display the votes.
Voting in favor, Hans Schmidt, Singleton Pike, Fritz, Beck, Leeske, motion carries.
All right. Thank you, Paul.
Great, thank you all. So we'll do what we said. We will send to Bonnie tomorrow a realistic look at what I think the market is as of tomorrow and what the savings would look like if we sold the bonds tomorrow. And we will ask that she circulate that among the council, and then we will make ourselves available for, we can host a conference call or a series of conference calls, either late in the day tomorrow or sometime, Thursday or Friday.
So, I would probably ask that you would include, obviously, the contact information that you'd like the council to use to reach you. But if you could, let him know as soon as possible whether you're at least interested in discussing this further, so that we can coordinate maybe a more efficient way of reaching out, whether it's one person or if it's a group. Would that be fair?
Yeah, that would be fine.
Okay.
Would it be appropriate to ask for a show of hands as to who might want to participate on a call this week?
There you go.
Would tomorrow late in the day work, or what's best for you?
It's gonna be snowing, we should all be home.
I'll-
I would be free until 4 o'clock, and then I'm gonna 4 o'clock. We do it at 3 or something like that over.
Let's plan on 3 o'clock. We'll set up a conference line, and I'll be traveling back from Grand Island, but we can all dial in and visit together.
All right.
All right, great. Thank you all.
Paul,
Thanks, Paul.
will these documents change, then we don't wanna sign these with you?
No, nothing changes in there. That's just parameters, and Charles made it clear what our marching orders are, so.
Okay,
But do we need his parameters from the motion on
No.
a document that would otherwise conflict with the document in here?
There's nothing that Charles stated that would conflict
Okay.
with anything in your proceedings.
Okay,
The only, he's just made it crystal clear to me
Sure.
what his expectations are, and those parameters are broad enough to, really do anything that we all agree we wanna do.
okay, perfect. All right, thank you, Paul.
Great, thanks everyone.
Okay, next item, number 8, consideration of an agreement with Hughes Brothers Incorporated to construct a 3-phase electrical service. Larry, would you mind just coming up, and if you have any questions, and just kinda give just a real brief overview of
Okay.
what the project is and why we're here.
Hughes Brothers come to us and said this last summer and spring, when they had this heavy flooding, they had flood damage from the north, and it would flood the whole plant in the offices and everything that deep. So they thought they designed a catch basin for 3-phase motor that they could pump that down and get rid of that water. And they asked us to build a 3-phase line from 10th Street along Lincoln Street and then back into the plant, 2,100 feet of line, and a 3-phase bank down at the north end of the building. And we agreed to do this. Hopefully they'll never have to use these pumps. If they do use them, they'll probably only use them 2 hours, and then they won't be used the rest of the year, or just when a heavy rain comes.
And to clarify, what's the total cost, roughly?
You got it there, $55,800.
And are they paying for this?
And they are paying for everything.
Okay,
We'll be getting the materials and do the construction, they'll be paying for it. Cause we won't be getting any revenue to
Right.
speak of from it, just once or twice, maybe a year, hopefully not. And, so
Right.
that, they agreed to this contract, so we will build this line for them.
so this isn't, just to be clear, I just wanna make sure everyone understood that we're not expending any money on this project. They're in fact paying for the project, but it's still a contract with the city, and so that's why we wanted you to have an opportunity to look at this
And they
and
have
decide.
approved the contract and agreed to it.
Yeah,
they've
they've already signed it,
already.
actually, so.
In the future, they're thinking about putting a 480-volt 3-phase big transformer on the north end of the building, and this line would serve that for them in the future too. And probably will be doing that, so this will be
Okay.
there ready.
Perfect.
And would that line be income generating?
That would be, yes, that'd be pretty good size service, a 600 amp at least, he said. And it'll probably they'll be going through with that, I think.
Okay. Any other questions for Larry? Otherwise, I'd entertain a motion.
So moved.
Second.
So just to be clear, the motion is to enter into this contract with Hughes Brothers. We have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, please register your votes. Please display the votes.
Voting in favor, Lacey Beck, Fritz, Paxton, Schmidt, Hand, motion carries.
Okay. And then number 9, this is the consideration of real estate option access agreement with Phyllis May Eggeter. And I talked with the city attorney today about whether we needed to go in. If you would like just an update on where we're at, it will literally take 5 minutes if you wanted to do that. Otherwise, we can wait, and we probably we'll have more information at the next meeting where I assume we would go into closed session
Absolutely.
to discuss that. But we didn't know exactly where we'd be in this process when the agenda went out, and so we put it in there as a placeholder. But I don't know that we have a whole lot to tell you. But again, it'd be up to you if you wanted to do this now or wait until until the next meeting.
I'd make a motion to table.
Okay. So
Second.
we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Seeing none, please register your votes. Please spread the votes.
Those in favor, Lucy Beck, Fritz, Mike Singleton, Schmidt, Hess, motion carries.
Okay, thank you. Item 10, this is the consideration of submitting a comment letter to NDED regarding the 2015 to 2019 proposed consolidated plan and 2015 action plan. And this is the CDBG Ed program income. Bonnie, did you want to take that?
Notes here. Craig Everly with SIN, he's our representative, brought this to our attention that we have about $108,000 in program reuse funds that we could reloan out, but there are obviously some parameters that we have to follow in order to do that. And NDED is currently reviewing their annual action plans, which includes program income reuse. The things to point out is we could submit this letter, which is in your packet. Basically what it says is to have NDED consider that communities such as the city of Seward be allowed more flexibility regarding what could be allowed as priorities in their projects. One of those priorities would be retail businesses. A lot of small communities, that's about all they have is retail, and if NDED removes that flexibility, it would basically, communities wouldn't be able to use their reuse funds. You probably have to send them back to NDED. So it's a letter that we can submit during this comment period for NDED while they're reviewing what they're going to use for parameters and on these reuse programs. Basically what it is.
This kind of became an issue, I think, a year or two ago. I think that the federal government took a position with how the state was administering these programs, these funds, and whether they were all in compliance and what safeguards were in place to ensure compliance with these requirements. And part of the issue was you had to meet certain parameters to get a loan under the CDBG parameters. But then the question was, once that money came back in, and that money was then loaned back out, did that sort of recycled money also have to meet those same parameters? And there were some issues about whether all the communities, how they were interpreting that. And so that's why I think the Department of Development is reviewing this process to make sure that one, it's in compliance with state law, and particularly with federal law, I should say, and then how that trickles down to the communities that are actually having and administering these funds. So that's kind of where we're at. So I don't know if there's any questions from anybody, or
The letter, if you so choose to send it, doesn't commit us to anything. It's just during their comment period, we're providing comment.
any questions? Otherwise, I entertain a motion.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, please register your votes. Please display the votes.
Voting in favor, Lucy Beck, Fritz, Pike, Singleton, Schmidt, Hess, motion carries.
Item 11, consideration of a special designated liquor permit for Kimmel Orchard and Vineyard Educational Foundation Incorporated and Ernest Wyneth, I'm guessing. Did you have anything on this?
There's nothing in their background or in their liquor license that would suggest that we shouldn't approve this license.
And where is this for? What event is this for?
This is for a wine tasting fundraiser on February 7th at Harvest Hall. You've approved several of them already.
Habitat for Humanity is what.
Oh, is that the one? Okay. All
Move for
right.
approval.
We have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, please register your votes. Please display the votes.
Voting in favor, Lucy Beck, Fritz, Pike, Singleton, Schmidt, Hess, motion carries.
All right, we have a consideration of special designated liquor permit for James Arthur Vineyards of Raymond, Nebraska, and this is James Ballard. Did you have anything to add to that one?
Again, there isn't anything on their license that would suggest that we have any concern with issuing
And
it.
what's the event, do you know?
It's the same one again.
Oh, they're doing it as well?
Mhm.
That's the wine tasting part of it? Okay. Is there any discussion? Otherwise, entertain a motion.
Move the roll.
Second.
Motion and second. Sorry, John, I didn't hear it the first time.
Yeah.
Any discussion? Seeing none, please register your votes. Please display the votes.
Any in favor, Lacy, Beck, Fritz, Pike, Schmidt, Hess, motion carries.
How many, Case, how many do you know?
I don't know, there's a bunch of them.
Okay,
A lot.
so, okay. Item 13, capital projects update, and I'd asked John Hughes, he's second his name.
Yes.
Do we have anyone to present that?
I don't, I mean, I could
Okay.
read through it, or
You have
it's in
the-
your packet.
You have the items, information in your packet, I guess. If you have any questions, just shoot us an email tomorrow or whenever, and we can try to get the answers for you. We just wanted, we were trying to figure out a way to, let you know about those types of projects, especially as they're happening, because those are the kinds of projects you probably get questions on from people, like, what's going on over here, why is this street torn up over there? And so, we're hoping moving forward, to continue that item on the agenda, if you think it's helpful, otherwise let us know. So, then we'll just move on to item 14, future requests for council agenda items or administrative action. Anything? Seeing nothing? Alright, 15, announcements, we have the City of Seward Farm Lease Auction, and that's at the Municipal Building on February 6th, 2015 at 10 a.m. All the items, or all the leases, I believe, I think you, John, had actually was wanting to make sure that we did that, will be up. And then we had some discussion about whether we wanted to maybe look to extend those options rather than being for 1 year, maybe do 2 or 3 years, and that's just based on some conversations I've had with, we're investing in this property, we'd like to know how many years we're gonna have it, so that's something we've been looking at as well, and I'll talk with the city attorney about that further. Item B, annual employee awards recognition dinner at the VFW, February 6th of 2015 at 6 p.m. And item C is the League of Nebraska Municipalities Midwinter Conference, February 23rd and 24th, 2015. I would say the league, typically those are good events to also meet other elected officials and kind of gauge maybe how they're doing in their communities as well, as participating in their various seminars. So, all right, that's 15, 16. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
One more. Can you read that I give you?
Oh, sure. Yeah. One moment, Barb, we'll get to you. All right, we have also have the Seward Volunteer Fire Department banquet, the SVF, what I just said, is hosting the 124th annual banquet on Saturday, February 21st, 2015. It'll be at the Harvest Hall at the fairgrounds, and social begins at 5:30 and the dinner begins at 6:30. And they'd ask for an RSVP by February 1st.
It's okay.
What's that?
It's okay.
We good?
Yeah.
Alright. Or as soon as you can. So, alright, anything else? Does anyone else have anything? Okay, we're good? We have a motion to adjourn. Second, any further discussion?
Which motion was it, John?
No, it was a Barb's motion and John's second.
Okay.
Please register your votes. Please display the votes.
All in favor, Lacy, Beck, Fritz, Pike, Schmidt, Hess.
Alright, okay, thank you all.